All right. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Looks like we've got a couple people just still joining, but I'd like to welcome everyone to MVP Office Hours number 72. My name is Joshua Hoskins. I'm filling in for Jared today. Not really sure what he's off doing, but must be something awesome. And coming to you live from a airport lounge in Detroit. So yeah, pretty interesting day today, and I've got some people on the line. So wanted to go ahead and open it up to the MVPs to go ahead and raise your hand so we can introduce you. And again, thanks for everyone for joining. So there's a couple ground rules. Everyone is not muted, so if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you have a question to ask, go ahead and raise your hand, or you can type the question into the chat as well. And last but not least, have your questions ready. If you don't have any questions, I will pick on you. So MVPs, over to you guys. Let's see who we've got joining so far. See a couple who have not raised their hands, so I'm going to go from top to bottom. We've got Dale.
Hello.
Is that it?
Hello, I'm Dale. This is my first time on here, so honestly, I'm coming in with an open mind and not knowing what to expect and not knowing how much of an introduction to give. So.
All right. Well, Dale's one of our awesome rock stars, a part of the Midwest Streaming team, along with, I believe, Jackie and some other folks who produced this amazing event last week. And if we have some time, I'll probably give some commentary at the end. It was great. So kudos to Dale, and that's your introduction.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Is Jackie? See her on, but I don't hear her. All right, moving on, we've got Mr. Martin.
Hey everybody, Mike Martin, solution architect with Apereo. Been in the Salesforce space since about 2008. Certified admin, developer, sales and service cloud consultant, and Salesforce MVP. So excited to chat with you guys about what's going on and hopefully help some folks out.
Cool, thanks, Mike. Fellow colleague of mine. Any other MVPs on the line? All right, cool. Oh, Jackie.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Had a little technical issue. It's Jackie Travieso out of South Carolina, MVP since 2013. I'm an independent contractor, and I mostly dabble in all of the Sales Cloud pieces and parts. So
cool, thanks, Jackie. All right, so this hour is really for the rest of the attendees on the call. We're here to answer your questions. The whole method of MVP Office Hours was to create another forum to receive assistance and get more interactive dialogue from some of the experts on the Salesforce.com platform. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor to anyone who has any questions. Go ahead and raise your hand or chat your question inside the box, and we'll get to you. I'm going to also promote Mr. Mike Martin to a co-presenter so he can see some of the things in here. All right, so it looks like we've got our first question from Suzanne. Are you on?
Yep, I just threw them all in the chat.
Okay, awesome. So let's take one at a time. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, and then let's go ahead and say your problem, and we'll see how we can help.
I'm Sue Davis, and I am a Salesforce certified administrator. My org does a lot of development outside of Salesforce, but there are some things, and I guess I should ask these questions because we ran them all together. I don't want to take up everyone's time. I have 4 questions. The first one is
let's start with the first one.
One of our developers asked, this is literally what he asked because I don't know what he's talking about. How do we run code when a user logs in not only from the home screen even when he presses an email link that brings him to the contact record. It definitely meant, and I just pasted it into my question list.
Okay, cool. I do see that here. So I completely understand it's a question. Maybe I'll have some other people pile on as well. I think a lot of these sessions, when someone asks, how to do something, what makes more sense to understand and comprehend the context to give you the best approach is actually to understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, because it's certainly probably a solution, but it may or may not be the correct way to do something depending on what we're actually trying to accomplish. So can you give any more context on what we're actually trying to accomplish here?
I wish I knew. That was the question. What I do is that I send out an email to our users and the developers and say, I'm going to be on this call. Do you have any questions? And that is literally how he phrased it. And so I guess I have to get back to him. Now, does it make more sense to get the details and then put that on the developer forum, I guess?
No, absolutely. You know what I would do? I mean, that's definitely an option. But I would actually invite him to this call. I mean, we support admins and developers on this call, and we certainly can reserve sections of the call to actually do so. So, I mean, happy to listen to his use case.
Yeah, unfortunately, he is our top developer, and he doesn't have time. So.
Okay. If you want to collect the feedback from him and post it in the MVP office hours chatter post in the success community,
okay.
we monitor that, and I can certainly pick that up with you offline. But do any of the other MVPs have another comment on this, or have done this before?
It's vague, I know. Sorry.
That's okay. We're all BAs of some sort, but anytime you get questions like that, really dive in to get the context that helps when getting a solution here. All right. So I know you've got 3 other questions, but do we have anyone else on the call that has a question before we go back to Susan?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. You go ahead. I have a list, so I don't want to take up everything.
Oh, I thought I heard a guy speak up too. Okay.
Yeah, we've got Squire on there as well, but you can go first. Go ahead.
So my question is about when a user changes job roles, like in the conceptual sense, and how we should handle that in Salesforce. Let's talk about one extreme. You've got a sales rep who, in Salesforce, he's in the, let's say, U.S. sales rep role. And then he gets promoted to president. So we change him to the president role. But if you go back and run a history report saying, show me all the U.S. sales reps opportunities back 5 years ago, it's not going to pick up his stuff. And everything is tied to the user record and thus the user role. So I'm finding myself hesitant to change people's roles in the system as they get promoted in real life, because then I kind of lose that history of, this opportunity was created by Joe the sales rep, not Joe the president. So how do other people handle that? Do you create a new user so that you can have Joe the sales rep and then another user that's active Joe the president? And if so, where do you draw the line? Am I the only one who worries about this?
I think it's certainly a good question. I think everyone has to have a strategy, but I'd like to open up to the other MVPs to see if they want to weigh in.
This is Dale. Being an admin for a customer, I have kind of faced that same scenario in the past. If I'm not mistaken, though, you might be able to leverage owner information. So if he was a sales rep, he's the owner of an opportunity or of an account or whatever, I'm going to defer to Josh and Mike because they have bigger picture than I do, but I believe you could create just a workflow rule that anytime the owner changes, drop the value of the role name into another field, and then that way it's preserved. Does that make sense?
I guess, but that would be like if you were just curious and thought to yourself, oh, let me pull up this opportunity and see like who used to own it. But if you want to run some kind of report, so what? I guess your report would have to be based on that old field?
Well, so it would be a field that would rest on that object, and if the owner never changed because it's perhaps a closed opportunity, there would be nothing to wake up that workflow to update it, so that then 5 years later, if you needed to know what was the status of or what were all the opportunities won, et cetera, by that team 5 years ago as the team looked 5 years ago, that value should be preserved. And again, maybe I'm way off. I'll defer back to the other MVPs if I'm way off.
I think the challenge is that there isn't a best practice because it all depends on what you want your data to do on those transfers. Everybody's got to kind of make those calls for their own org, right? I mean, like there's even documentation I know I've seen referencing, Salesforce roles don't necessarily align with positional roles, and maybe they shouldn't. This is a great example of that. So, I mean, going back to the original question, when someone transfers or is promoted, are they still considered the owner of those past ones, or should they be transferred downstream to a new rep so that they can manage and control those opportunities?
Well, if they're open opportunities, then yeah, you would want to transfer it to the new person who's actually working them. But if it's in the past, if they've won an opportunity as Joe the sales rep and 5 years goes by, you're not going to want to change the owner of that closed opportunity. I mean, you're not going to want to change it to like Mark. You want to remember that it was Joe.
Sure. And so then the follow-up question is then, so if the owner needs to remain regardless of employment or role, then is the real question, does your reporting need to change to be evaluated in a different way? So
you're saying maybe I shouldn't be using owner role
as a reporting filter. Yeah, that's exactly
that's
where
kind of what I was wondering if the answer was going to be. Like, do a lot of other people not use owner role to group their records?
I think my earlier comment still stands that everybody has a different use case. If the owner role fulfills the requirements of the report and has longevity, then stick with it. And if it doesn't, like in the case of your example, then you can't and you shouldn't. I mean, I don't think there's a way to set something in stone to define that, because your data and your user base is changing regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even regionally speaking, if you were to rely on things like hierarchy and roles, if someone moves from California to New York, your entire hierarchy blows up unless you can react and respond and adjust accordingly.
Or if your territories realign themselves, like the boundaries
point.
of the territories.
Yeah, that's a good point. Are there territories? I mean, if you change your territories up, how do you pull a report on territory A? If Joe used to be in territory A, but now he's in B, can't really do it based on owner.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here, and I think we're starting to sort of pan them out. One thing that's really helpful to do is to understand for everyone on the phone is really what roles is supposed to do. And I have an opinion, and I've actually read some documentation on how to had a customer rep done before. And roles by itself is really used to be able to understand the visibility of records. Now, it can be used for other things as well, but it's access, right? So there's two ways to basically determine access, and that one of them is through roles, and the other one is through manual sharing rules or criteria-based sharing rules. So if you take that need, you're right. If I'm a president, I'm going to be able to see all of the records that are underneath me, that I've seen. And if I happen to be the opportunity owner, then it's correct. I'm going to still remain the opportunity owner, whether I was, whether I closed an opportunity a year ago or today, because I owned that opportunity. But as the president, I'm going to be able to see all of my opportunities and all of my subordinates' opportunities as well below me. Whereas if I'm further down the hierarchy, I'm only going to see mine. I'm not going to see anyone else's opportunities. And so that is, that's one of the main reasons for visibility. Now, in terms of grouping or persisting the data of when that region actually is, Dale's right. You can stamp it, but that doesn't really solve your use case for prior records. But you should absolutely be using owner. But I think what you're trying to do, if you're trying to use some type of history, you've got to use something that's not going to change. And in some cases, it's territory, which is if that's what you're trying to run as sort of a territory report historically. That's what I've seen organizations do. Even the organization I'm at right now, we have a region assigned to the opportunity, and that gets stamped when someone creates the opportunity, and then that's how we dial that up. And that's a good way to make sure that, in terms of your reporting and financial calculations, if you have opportunity reports done by region, that it doesn't change and those numbers are going to be the same all the time.
I see what you're saying, a field on the opportunity. I guess I was originally thinking you guys were suggesting a field on the owner, the user object, but no, we're talking about a stamp on the opportunity that says, the West region.
Well,
right.
I was saying leverage information from the user record from the owner, but putting it on that opportunity.
Yeah, okay.
So
that makes a lot more sense.
The user may be assigned to the West on their user record, but when the opportunity gets created, you could stamp the value from the user record onto the opportunity so it doesn't change.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I can definitely visualize this now. I was a little confused earlier, but that makes sense.
Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. Glad we were able to help you. Any comments from anyone else? All right. Cool. Glad that was helpful to you. Let's move on. Squire, you're on the call?
Yep.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, so hopefully I can explain this out. So we have a junction object sitting underneath contact that relates to a secondary object list. It's basically subscriptions to specific mailings, and the mailings list is significantly long and has details. But the point of it is that all users need to be able to see all of those mailing items and be able to see them on the contact when they're associated into the subscription. So standard use case. The trick that we're trying to deal with is that we need to find a way to prevent users from creating a subscription to specific mailing types. So it's almost like a record type validation on the related record, and then the big and that works because we can just basically pick something off of the user, maybe their role or their profile, and then say if the record type of the related record is X, don't let them save it. But what we're bumping up against is that what we really need to be able to have almost a permission set type assignment to be able to say that person can add these types and that person can add those types. And so I'm kind of fighting with how to make that happen. The validation rule works, but it's far more global than a one user at a time kind of assignment. Okay.
What type of org do you have? What edition?
Oh, we're on Unlimited.
Okay, cool. I think that's helpful. I'm still trying to comprehend some of the stuff. So can you do me a favor and just go back up to the beginning and just explain the data model again?
Sure. So it is the junction object, the subscription object, sits underneath contact and relates a contact with a mailing object. So underneath the contact it just says Bill gets mailing A. And it's just there's lists of these things, and there's hundreds of thousands of mailings that we are tracking. So
you have the contact, and then you have the subscription, which is associated to the contact. Yeah. And then associated to the subscription, you have multiple mailings.
No, it's a one-to-one. So if you open up the subscription record, It literally just has a contact field, an item field, and a active checkbox.
All right, so we're only dealing with basically two objects right now, the contacts and the subscription. But the subscription is where you have your junction object, which associates a contact with an item, and then active or not, right?
Yes.
Okay. So subscription, this is type, item, and active. Okay, got it?
Yep. And then any user can see all of the related subscriptions. So I can actually do it at the subscription level to basically like an ownership or kind of a sharing thing. They should be able to see all of them. But if you try to add a new one to the contact, only items of specific record types can be created by specific people.
Okay, got it. All right, MVPs. Any thoughts on this? Okay, I'll take a stab at this. I think for this, you probably have to go custom because, like you mentioned, you can't just remove. If you remove the record type, you remove visibility for that record type.
Right.
So you're definitely going to have to do something custom. If you're looking for it to be, validated, it makes sense to do something like a trigger.
Yep.
And then you just need to have some scalable method to assigning these. And there's two ways you could do it. You could do it via a custom setting. So maybe you have a custom setting for every profile API name, and that will then have like a delimited list of the record types that they're allowed to add that you can parse through. That would be one way.
Can I ask a question about that one?
Sure, yeah.
I was actually that's what you're describing is kind of where I thought I was going to end up having to go. I was just hoping it was declarative. But the question about that one is, could I use the custom setting to say user ID and record ID is approved rather than by profile? Do you think would that work? For any reason it wouldn't?
I think it won't scale for you though, because for every user you have to do a custom setting entry. You definitely want to trigger off of a point where you can affect sort of a group of users, and you can certainly do it with permission sets as well. If you're going to do it through permission sets and it's user specific, I would actually probably recommend you do a custom object that allows you to drive it. So you have the permission set ID and then a list of the record type that they're allowed. Since you're on unlimited, a custom object for you to do this shouldn't be a problem. Mm-hmm. But if it could be any larger, it just makes sense to get it work that way. It's maintainable. And then you have to create the permission set first and then provision it in that custom object that says these people are allowed to create these types of records.
And again, I think that I may have, so it's not, the subscription itself isn't a specific record type. It's the items.
That's fine. Either or. How many items are there?
There are 5 different record types and a couple thousand of each item type in the existing list. Plus, that list is growing based on the marketing. It has to do with the compliance level. So items of certain types can't be added to a contact by certain users. They have to be approved effectively. So that kind of comes down to where we're and to your earlier point, it is a user by user assignment. Certain people based on their industry and their role and their office have different rights. So I mean, it unfortunately it's very unscalable, but a necessary evil.
So
it's
interesting because some of it even lends itself to maybe putting some of the functionality actually on the item, so that you have it at the most granular level. For every item, you understand who exactly can add people in.
Okay.
So maybe it's just a new custom field on the actual mailing to say these types of profiles are able to do it. But then you should be able to do something else. Like if you maybe make on a mailing, you make a multi-pick list, or so you make a pick list depending on how you want to slice and dice the permissions. And then on the user objects, you have the same set of values. Then you might be able to do something declarative to say that this user cannot enter this type of mailing unless it matches or contains a value that's on the user object. And then that way you probably wouldn't have to use permission sets. But you want to be able to make sure that you only have like 5 or 6 ways to slice and dice the data, because you'll be doing something in a pick list versus or a multi-pick list. But that would be one way to do it declarative if you wanted to. The association should work there, because you should be able to get to the user object, and you should be able to get one hop to attributes on the mail on the item from the subscription.
Sure. So let me say it back to you, because I like where you're headed with this. So if there were 5 record types on these items, and item A, I'm going to call it research just so I can call it. So research record type. On the user, I could say can send research record type with a checkbox yes or no. Then the validation rule would basically say, is the item you're associating with the subscription X? Is it a research? And is this true? Is that checkbox true? If those are both true, no error message. Otherwise, it'll throw validation. You could just you'd write 5 validation rules to evaluate the 5 different combinations of item to that checkbox, and I could do it declaratively.
Yes, you could do that. I have a question for you. Can an item have multiple approvals? Like you said, researcher was one of them, but is it just one or is it multiple?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said approval because that's misleading. It's just that certain people have been given the ability based on their role to create a subscription to a certain item. So don't think approval like approval flow.
But will that item only have one type associated to it?
Yeah,
like
it's by record type. Yeah, there's only 5 record types drive the type of item.
All right. So my only change to that is I wouldn't recommend adding a checkbox, because that could be unscalable, because every time you come up with a new type, you have to add new checkboxes.
Mm-hmm.
I would I would go with a pick list and on both objects, and just compare the pick list.
So user dot item pick list equals record type.
So you may have a multi-pick list on the user object that says this user is able to create these 5 record types, or maybe they get 3 out of the 5 or 2 out of the 5. And then on the mailing, you have one of those types, and you basically say if the mailing type contains the same text as something in the user multi-pick list, then you're good. But if it doesn't, so you have to do like a contains and an in.
Because the multi-pick is held by comma delimited stuff, right? Or
exactly. That way you don't have to create a checkbox for every type you have.
Perfect. That actually, I like that solution far more than text. Code. So I'm gonna take that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Let's know how it works out for you.
You got it.
All right. Great question. Anyone else have a question? We'll go back to Suzanne. Suzanne, over to you. Second question.
This is what the developer said, and I posted it on the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
Want me to read it?
Sure. Go ahead.
He is trying to accomplish an outside system to get a notification every time a user logs in the system right away. He needs the username and IP address immediately after a successful login by calling a web service on our end. He wants the service to be called even if the user did not land on the home page, like in the case the user receives a link to a contact via email. The user clicks on the link, logs into Salesforce, and sees the contact. Even in this case, he wants to run a code that calls a web service, informing the user logged in on this moment with this IP. That was what he wrote. I have no idea what he means, but I posted it on the developer forum, so we can actually move on. If you have time, my other questions.
Yeah, sure. I'll noodle on that one, but yeah, let's go to the other one.
I have users I had a user that installed something called Ring DNA. Now, the profiles that I have do not have permission to do anything on the App Exchange, and I'm wondering, how did he do it? Am I missing something? I mean, yes, I know I can revoke it, but in this case, it's not a big deal. I'm just like, how did this user get connected to? In this case, it's some app called Ring DNA, and it's under the connected apps OAuth usage. When you look at a user, and it's not a permission in their profile.
Yeah. So what do you? Go ahead.
I was going to ask. So can you see that app as well, or can he only see that app? That's got me perplexed.
Well, I don't even. I mean, I don't have the app. I just looked at the user. Under the connected apps OAuth usage, when you look at a user, you see all the things like, Salesforce One, for example. There's a thing called Ring DNA, and it's on the App Exchange, but I don't know how he's able to have use of it, considering that his profile doesn't have any App Exchange permissions.
Yeah, so there's two things there. So item number one is actually to install the application. You do need to be sort of an administrator to do that, and I would look under the installed packages inside the setup just to make sure you're comfortable with that list. And you probably won't see Ring DNA. But from an App Exchange perspective, there are partners that will allow, like for instance, if you want to use their service or something like that, they can authenticate using their own credentials. And by allowing that, it's called an OAuth authentication. It gives the vendor, in this case Ring DNA, to access some of the information that user can see. There is a way to prevent that. You should be able to remove OAuth authentications on the profile level, or prevent it from happening on whatever permission set's being brought up. And that will be to do it. You can probably say only allow OAuth authentication to approved credentials, but you should be able to actually disable that. And I know that should require API. I'm not sure of the correct setting, but it's probably on the profile. But I'd also like to open up to anyone else.
I can't turn off the API because we have a lot of development requiring our users to have API access. Because that'll break.
Let me see if there's another setting.
Yeah, you're not. Just keep in mind, you're not turning it off for all of them. You can turn it off on a one-by-one basis, or a get approval anytime someone requests it.
Are you talking about the access to the API? I cannot do that even for one user. Because not the API. It's the OAuth. Okay, is that in the profile permission or the user?
It would definitely be on the profile. I'm logging into an org right now to see if I can see it.
Yeah, me too. And I would double check, as you mentioned, the installed packages, because if it's not in that list, then it's definitely an external authorization being granted by the user. If it's installed, then you'll be able to see when and how, but it doesn't sound like it was.
So there are apps on the App Exchange that don't get installed into our org, but that our users can use somehow?
Well, I mean, as well as just because it's on the App Exchange doesn't mean they don't have an externally facing client. I mean, CRM Fusion is a great example of that. They have a integrated package as well as a desktop app that just connects to Salesforce through that OAuth. It's not actually an installed package at all. So a lot of times, because they have an integration, they'll advertise on the App Exchange, but it's not actually an installable package.
Right. So it's on their computer and it links to our Salesforce. It's just not in our Salesforce.
Yeah, or it's a web-based app, and they just have a connection from the web-based app. It might not even be an installed package or installed app on their PC.
It's definitely not an installed package. It just showed up under their.
Yeah, that's fine. I also just looked. It's not actually on the profile. It's not actually on the profile, but if you go to the setup and you type in OAuth under Managed Applications, there's a tab or an option called Connected Apps OAuth usage, and you can actually look at all the OAuth usage, and you can block a provider if you wanted to.
Right, with the revoke, I don't know if it's worth revoking. I mean, it looks like this is just, it's a harmless thing. It's helping him to drive sales. So I just was curious as to how he was able to do it. And what you just told me explained that it's possible for him to go to the App Exchange, find something, put it on his computer or on his mobile device without actually installing it in Salesforce and make use of it that way somehow.
Yeah. And it all depends on the app. But, I mean, this is a great learning opportunity if you're the admin of the organization to maybe understand what he's using it for and, maybe potentially how it could be something that, can help the rest of the organization. I think as an admin, it's beneficial just to be aware of, what your users are doing and doing because, whatever he's doing, if he has access, I mean, he's only gonna be able to do things that he's allowed to do. Right, but it's still worthwhile just saying, hey, I saw that you downloaded this. Let's have an open, collaboration on, how this is helping you, and if it's not, how can I solve that problem for you in another way?
Okay, that makes sense. I can give the guy a call if I can get a hold of him.
Yep.
And as long as it's not, it just looks strange. That's all. Okay, so someone else
can I ask a follow-up question to that topic for Joshua and anybody else who knew about this, because this was new to me. Are there any concerns about compromising data in any way? I know that you said, Joshua, that he can only do the things that he has already been granted permission to do, but let's say if they've been granted permission to export data, is there any kind of a notification or any kind of insight into knowing when people are downloading these third-party apps that actually sit on their desktop or mobile device that accesses Salesforce? I mean, how can an admin be proactively aware of these things going forward as they happen?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A very good question.
I have over 300 and something users. I can't look at everyone that's being done what. So.
Yeah. That's. So what's interesting about this is I'm not sure what type of app it is or if it's a Canvas app, but there is.
It's like a sales. It's a sales enhancing app. It looks harmless. I mean, it's just I don't know how he did it, but now I know how he did it.
So there are a couple options here. One of them, if it's a Canvas application, which is a type of OAuth authentication, underneath Connect Apps, you can actually uncheck that box that says allow users to install Canvas personal applications, and they won't be able to install there. The second option, I believe, is on the profile. So let me go back to a profile, and it will actually, let me just go back to a profile. There's probably something on the profile that says only allow for people to install items that I've added. We don't see it on here though, but I know I've seen it someplace else.
Yeah, I was looking
That's
myself.
weird.
There's a way to basically lock down as much or as little as you need as far as the APIs and the OAuth and everything. I was looking myself.
Yeah, it's here someplace. I think it is under connected apps, and you can set it by profile to only the ones that you like. But if you look under connected apps, basically everything's there. And if you edit one of the connected apps, which should be Ring, DNA, then you can change your OAuth policies. So your OAuth policies are administrators, all users can self-authorize, or you can change it to where admins need to be approved. Let me see if I can share my screen, and maybe that will make it better for everybody. Give me 2 seconds. So if I'm here and I want to share my screen, and my primary one, you guys should be able to see my screen now, right?
Yep.
Yep,
Rendered.
we can see it.
All right. So under Manage Apps, if you go to Connected Apps, you'll see this checkbox, which you can uncheck. But then you'll see a list of all the things that have all the apps that are connected to your org, and say there's like, Salesforce, I don't want to do a Salesforce one, but maybe there's Workbench. If I edit that one, then under OAuth policies, I can choose whether, admin approved and the users have to be pre-authorized, or I can say my users can self-authorize for this connected app. So I think it's just being able to be aware of the connected apps that are in there, just going to look at them. But also once they're in there, you can basically change the authorization. And it says, enabling this option will result in all users currently using the app to be denied access. Please reference the connected Office report if you are unsure who's using this app. So once you change it to that, then it's going to prompt you to self-assign the users to this connected app after it's changed. So now I'll be able to add those users manually if I wanted to. So I go back into Workbench. Here I can add the profiles and the permission sets that I need to give access to that one. So this is how you would manage it. So in terms of being proactive, I would just make sure you can turn that global checkbox off here, what I showed you guys earlier, and just monitor the ones that are here. And then, once you see a new one pop up, you can switch it.
Okay, so I guess I'm clear. I'm looking at connected apps, and I don't see this guy's app on this list. It's under the connected app OAuth usage, and then I can see user count, and there's a couple that are strange. So,
so I would take a look at those. And when you see it under OAuth usage, do you see this View App Info button next to it, or is it blank?
You're looking at connected apps, right? I'm looking at connected apps OAuth usage.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at connected apps OAuth usage, and you have the list. It has the connected app, and then it has a column for View App Info. And then it has user count. Not for all of them, but for the one that you're on, does it have it?
No.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So yeah, I guess there's two things here. One is you understand how to block them. There's another checkbox that you can try to utilize to see if that helps. It's only for Canvas types of applications as well. Two, there is a concern for data integrity. These types of softwares could be doing something to the data that's not expected, but honestly, it's probably the risk is minimal, considering the fact that people have customized their orgs, and maybe it's just getting the email address and phone number or something like that, and cleaning it or something like that. I guess the best part about this question is that RingDNA is actually managed by one of our fellow MVPs, Michael Farrington. And if you want to post something on MVP Office Hours, the chatter group, I can get you in touch with him, and he can explain to you exactly what's going on. And he'd probably be able to give a better answer than we can.
Okay, and related to that, since their profiles don't have any permissions to download or do anything with the App Exchange, nevertheless, I see users that have App Exchange use count.
And that's fine. They could. I mean, these connected apps are just not things that are on the App Exchange. They're tools that other partners have developed that may not be on the App Exchange that offer a Salesforce connector or feature. It's not directly tied to the App Exchange at all.
Okay. I'll post something on the MVP board.
Sure. All right, and I'll definitely get you in touch with Mike Farrington when you post that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That was great, Josh. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yep, no problem. All right, let me get back to the console here. see where we're at. All right. Any other questions? We have. I know you've got one more probably. What do you guys see now? Do you guys still see my desktop or no?
Just ready to talk.
No, we're ready to talk. I have another question if no one else has anything else.
Yeah.
I have
else?
one that's not too critical. So if we have a few minutes and nobody else is asking, I'm working on the success community, so hopefully maybe somebody will respond to my question there. But a profile can only have one page layout associated to it, right?
A user can only have one profile associated to it. That is correct.
But then, okay, so I've got two users in the same profile, but when they go to the same object, they see different things, like different related. Like it looks like a different page layout. Things are in different orders on the page. So my question is, like, even I know they're in the same profile, and a profile should only be linked to a single page layout, right?
So there's actually an added degree of dynamics to that. You can associate based on record type as well. So
well, we're talking about the same actual object, like
right.
So there's one record type to be dealt with in this example.
There is only one record type confirmed.
Well, no, there's multiple. Like we're talking about opportunities here, and there's multiple opportunity record types, but like the same instance of this opportunity. You know, like the Kansas City deal. Like they're both looking at the same Kansas City deal opportunity. So it's not like there's different record types.
Or you have you validated that there aren't possibly permission sets to additional objects? Because if you say like the related lists are different, could it be that one of the users has, through permission sets, additional objects that the other user does not?
Okay, well I did just check that. The profile is granting read access to these objects, so the profile is not denying anything, and the users do not have any permission sets on either of them.
What are the differences on the page layouts?
The related list. There's a couple missing, and then the remaining ones are in a different order.
So users...
Can you name a specific one? It might tell us exactly what's wrong.
Yeah.
Is it marketing? Is it campaigns?
No. It's Big Machines. That's an integration we have. So the related lists for Big Machines are missing for the one user. But like for instance, the open activities and the activity history, those are out of the box related lists, and those are in a different order than the other user.
Yeah, so users can customize their own. Yeah, Josh was showing you here, customized page. If you have that feature enabled, you can rearrange related lists on your own, and that's specific to a user. You can remove them, and you can rearrange them. So that's probably what's going on.
But does that would that take away the related lists that are missing?
Yep, that's what he's doing right now. He's taking away related lists, and that will be saved for that user. That's why you get a warning sometimes if you change a related list on a page layout. It'll warn you, hey, some users may have customized this option. Do you want to override that? And
by golly, you guys are right. I just logged in the user. That's exactly what it was. I didn't even know about that. And you know what? I would put money on the fact that this user didn't know about it.
Yeah, they probably did it one time and forgot about it.
Right.
Well, they actually logged into the system for the very first time yesterday. So I don't think unless they accidentally did it between yesterday morning and this morning, like that's all they've ever been in that system doing.
Interesting.
I don't know. Maybe there's more to it than that. But my question has been answered. Thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Suzanne, back over to you.
Yeah, it's a dumb question, but I told my users or one of the people I work with that I'd ask it. Is it
no question's ever dumb.
Well, they want to know. We have a user that's like a super user. I don't want to be delegated administration because I don't trust anyone. They want to say, well, is it possible to let this user log in as a handful of other users? I'm like, no, they need to manage user permission in their profile. I didn't think there was a way to cherry pick.
What are you trying to do again?
I have a user that, wants to log in as, like some of the salespeople, for just those certain people, and it's an all or nothing as far as I know. They would have to manage users' permission in their profile, which I'm not going to give them. I just wanted to confirm that is the case, because I never heard of, having someone say, yeah, I can log in as this person.
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
Values directly above the net value.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Log in as Joe, John, and Jerry, and not everyone else. As far as I know, they need to have that managed users' permission, which I'm not giving her. Right?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, in order to log in as another user, you actually need an attribute, which is not necessarily manage users. It's modify all data, and then once you have modified all data, you'll have that. But there's a couple features that are not implemented in default. You have to ask for these to be on, but you can actually define login access policies, and I think this is now GA. So now you should be able to go to setup and go to login access policies, and within login access policies you can choose whether it's enabled for all administrators. That's the thing that's different. And then obviously you have the different packages. So yeah, in order for someone to have access to login as another user, they're going to need the permission, which is manage all data. And typically what I've done in the past is I've created a permission set that is that's a thing on there, manage user. That's the only thing. Modify all data, and that's the only thing that it has. And then if a user needs temporary administration or wants to do something, I add that permission set, and then when they're done, I take it away. But I'm sure other MVPs have maybe some other solutions.
What they want this user to do is she's like runs one of our business units, and she has like 3 salespeople. The way like a system administrator does, like I can log in as any user to basically test things. They want her to be able to log in as, like, say, 3 users out of 300. I don't think you can do that unless I give her all permissions, and then she can log in as any user, and I don't want that.
Yeah, you want to limit which user she can log in, not when and how often.
Right, and I can't see any way of doing that. I'm not going to be turning on and off, modify all data. That's a waste of my time. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. So I'm going to tell them.
And what's the purpose that they need to do this for? To test?
Well, I guess not necessarily to test, but to do things as that user. I mean, it's sort of, it wasn't the greatest request, and as far as I know, there's not a good business reason for it, and I do not want to give this user modifiable data and manage user permission.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, if it's for testing, you could do it for testing because there's a limited amount of time and period, and you could manage that, and sometimes that's what people do. Some people, if they have the user licenses, they'll create shadow accounts for testing only. But just to say that you want to log in as someone to do access for them, I think it's probably also a violation of licensing policy in terms of Salesforce, unless they have their own license as well. But if you're logging in as someone,
when you look at your user list, like I do with this set, as admin, I can log in as any user.
Right, but that should only be used for troubleshooting and testing and actually, understanding what a user is experiencing, not for business as usual use. Because if you do that for business as usual use, then you lose all purpose of your audit trail, which doesn't make sense.
Right, and also I can't just let her do it, say, for example, to test 3 out of 300 users. There's no way to do that.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got 3 minutes left. Any other questions out there before we wrap up? Okay, cool. So I'd like to do two things in the last 3 minutes. I'm going to call in some people, Jackie and Dale. I just want to give like a quick, 1 minute synopsis of Midwest Streaming for the folks that are on the call, so they can get a different perspective on the experience you guys had at one of these regional events, and then we'll wrap up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Midwest Streaming was like a mini Dreamforce, much more consumable than 4 days of action-packed everything fire hose, which is wonderful. But I feel like you get a lot more personal one-on-one with speakers and your networking opportunities. The partners seem to be very targeted. Joshua, the Demo Jam is my absolute all-time favorite. If we could see more and more of those, that would be fantastic. It's a great way to consume what a third-party vendor or an AppExchange vendor provides with the quick, here's what it does, and without all of the fluff and the sales pitch. So, which is what I'm most interested in, is what does your product do? I'm not so much concerned about the history of your company. I want to know what it does, how it does it, and do I need it? But Midwest Streaming was great. It was a full-day, action-packed event. Made some great contacts, made some new friends. Totally worth making the trip from South Carolina up to Chicago. So, Dale?
Everything you just said and a little bit more. Yes, it was a great opportunity to meet people more individualized and in a smaller, more intimate environment than Dreamforce. It was also a great opportunity for some people who perhaps Dreamforce isn't in their budget, but they were still able to get the Dreamforce-like experience much more affordably, which I got a lot of feedback that people were appreciative of. And then it was also, I had a unique opportunity. Someone attended one of the sessions the session that I led. They said, well, we're trying to make the decision of if we're going to pull the trigger on Salesforce. Coming to Midwest Streaming helped firm that up, and it feels like it was a lot less overwhelming than starting at Dreamforce would have been. So the analogy was Midwest Dreaming was the appetizer, and Dreamforce was the entree, that now they're ready to order and consume and ultimately pull the trigger to become a Salesforce customer. So definitely a good time, and a lot of good contact made. Idea sharing and collaboration, all good stuff.
Did anyone else on the call get to attend, out of curiosity?
I live in Hawaii. I don't go anywhere.
Well, if you've got to be stranded someplace, I think Hawaii is a pretty good spot.
I think so too. I don't think Salesforce is going to hold any events here though.
You do know Mark Benioff loves vacationing in Hawaii, so I don't know that I would say it's never going to make its way there.
Yeah, but he's probably going to a different island, not the Big Island.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was on mute earlier. It was a great question. I think just to pile on and close out is I was inspired just sitting at some of the sessions, not necessarily being a part of the organization team, but as Jackie mentioned, hosting the Demo Jam, which is widely successful. Just sitting there, having my mind off of work and sort of listening to people and their success stories, just really inspired me to go back and do something different with the way that I approach different projects and solutions. And sometimes that time is well needed, and you don't even realize it until you're experiencing it yourself and you're sat down in a session. So that was my take on the session. I took off work. I flew from London all the way to Chicago, and I was just blown away by listening to some of the stories that were refreshing. Sometimes we're bogged down, heads down, day to day, without really sort of taking a breather and actually saying, okay, we can accomplish it, and other people are having these challenges as well, and learning from other companies and admins to see how they address different issues is beneficial to all. So with that, I want to wrap up by thanking everyone for attending Office Hours number 72, the bi-weekly session. So we'll definitely be scheduling the next one to happen in 2 weeks' time. By that time, Jared should be back in the saddle and ready to go. But it's been a pleasure, working with you guys today and answering some of your questions. And thanks to my fellow MVPs that are also on the call. Your participation is greatly appreciated as well. Couldn't do this without you. So with that, everyone, have a great weekend, and hope to speak to you in 2 weeks. Have a good one, guys.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks.